Harris, Arrow of Achievement. Adam Harris has been a career journalist for several years, and today we'll be getting a little more insight into Mr. Harris and what he's about. Mr. Harris, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Harris, let's talk about, give us a little insight about Adam Harris before getting into journalism, before you got into journalism. Tell us some of the things we don't know.
Adam Harris is a very diverse person. He grew up very poor in the community. He grew up, born in Bedford, grew up on West Demerara. The jealousy went back to Bedford acting. He was an average child, played a lot. Went to school. Left school in 1966. Picked up a job in Bartica because...
Before you go to the job, Mr. Harris, some of the schools that you attended.
We can go all the way down to nursery school, where a lady, she's now dead, Enid Bartati. Then I went to St. Jude's Anglican School at Blankenburg, West Demerara. Went on to Queen's College. And from there, I began my working career. So I went to Bartik and started working on my birthday, 1st of November 1966. After 1 year, went to the Government Teachers Training College, spent 2 years, graduated with a class 1, grade 1, class 1, they used to call it then. I majored in chemistry and physics, went to Bartika Government Secondary School and started teaching there. I think there are some people around today who would have been my students and who credited me with putting them on the path. There was Dr. George Norton. There was anesthesiologist, anesthesiologist, Monica Aldrin. There are many others like Burnett Agriculture. There are too many to mention. And in 1973, I switched profession and became an ordinary reporter. I became information officer with responsibility for what was then one of the largest regions, Region 7. I started that with a camera, a tape recorder, and a typewriter. I had no office, created my own office. And I came to the notice of the newspapers because they thought I could write very well. So at the time, the Guyana Graphic began to publish some of my articles. I wrote some articles for the New Nation as far back then. So from 1973 to 1976, I then went to study at Mona, the University of West Indies Mona campus in 1977, finishing with a postgraduate degree in mass communication. Came back to Guyana, went to Verbies, New Amsterdam, as senior information officer. Transferred to Georgetown 1980, November 1980, began my first full stint with the media house, the Guyana Chronicle, and the rest is history. There I am.
Okay, Mr. Harris, you stepping back a bit, in addition to the Guyana Chronicle newspaper, some of the other media houses that you would work for, media entities?
I worked with the New Nation, which was the organ of the People's National Congress back then. And while I was with New Nation, I did some features for the Guyana Broadcasting Service, GBS, which is now NCN. I later on started where
Mr. Harris, what was teaching like? Because I think you started teaching in Bartica. Yeah. What was your teaching days like, and how different, if you were to compare what teaching is today to what it was back then?
If I can compare, because I haven't been in many classrooms since. But it was a profession. You always prepared before you entered the classroom. You learned to relate to people, because it was necessary for you to have the confidence of the people you taught. They must understand you. Because I did sciences, it wasn't just talk and chalk. It was about making them actually see what you were talking about, hence the experiments. It was about being prepared to answer any question they might ask, because when you're talking to somebody, they create one impression. And they would ask questions based on that impression, and it's your duty to correct them if they're slightly off track and all of that. And that one made it good, very, very successful. As I moved on in life, I met a lot of these students, many of them overseas, some in Guyana. And whenever they came to Guyana, they made it their duty to come and give me a look up, because they felt that I had contributed to their lives. So I thought I was a very good teacher. And so, I mean, if I don't tell myself that, perhaps nobody would tell me. So I go in the classroom now. I don't know. As I said, I haven't been in too many of them. I don't know what operates. I don't know about the kind of relationship teachers would share with their students. I don't know the kind of respect they might command. I don't know. A lot has to do with the kind of stage you set in the classroom. It has to do with the kind of relationship you have with the parents, who must feel that they can talk to you at any time about the welfare of their children, rather than having parents who would want to run in the school with a piece of wood and beat me because I offended their child and all of that. That was unheard of when I was a teacher.
What was the definitive thing, or the definitive things that caused you to switch from the teaching profession to actual journalism?
$15. You look at money today, and you have a lot of bulk. When I stopped teaching, I was earning $215 dollars a month. That was in 1973. I had a wife, I had children, I was paying a rent, and I had money to support on the side. The Ministry of Information offered me $230 a month. Now, to put that in context, $15 could have bought a pair of Clark's shoes or boots. $15 could have bought food for my household for at least a week, and that's rice, grains, meat, everything for a week. $15 was a lot of money then. So that was the major influencing factor. The other factor was that I was given a chance to travel around Region 4. Big Bartica, Region 7, sorry, it included parts of it was now Region 8, and it included the Midland, the Upper Mazaruni, and that was my district, so I got a chance to see all the places. You named them, I saw them. Urupum, Cameron, Kaikan, Environmentai, Parima, many. Madia, Kangaroo. I saw the interior as it is today.
Okay, so coming back to journalism, what are some of the most impacting stories that you can recall covering as a journalist?
Oh boy, there were many. Now when I left Mona, some strange reason, I majored in radio. I never worked a day in radio. My second major was the print media, so I was in the newspapers. Stories that had an impact. Now, I recognize that people like to see themselves in the news and the newspaper. And if you want to motivate somebody, feature them in the newspapers. That's why parents break their necks to see the photograph and the report of their children when they do a common entrance. That's why people run to take out a special spot in advertising column in the newspaper when their children do well. And back then, I don't know now, people used to cut out those things and put them in books. People like to see themselves. So when you write a story about people or a group of people, and it's published with their photographs and all of that, it made an impact. And I did one where a fellow was making saltfish in the interior. To make people understand, because a lot of us see the Coast Guard on Guyana. You need to have preserved food in the interior because in those days you were traveling over long distances. So don't think about fresh beef or fresh chicken and all of that. Preserved food. So this man was making saltfish, he was catching them in the river. He was based at the salmon at the time. And he was making money for himself. He was also a part-time pork knocker. But when he shipped saltfish to a mining camp, he got some good money, and I featured him. And at that time, saltfish making wasn't as prevalent as it is today. And people across the country read it, and then you realize that this man had relatives on the coast. He had gone into the interior and hadn't come out back in more than 20 years. So you can imagine perhaps he had a little son here who was 5 or 6. And daddy disappeared in the bush, and suddenly, boy, this is your father in the paper. So he was going to see his father in the newspaper for 20 years, and then they sought me out. That was one big story. The other stories that I did, that come regularly to mind, and I did a lot, were the stories that emanated from the crime situation we had after the 2002 jailbreak, with people being killed all over the place, policemen being killed willy-nilly. I did a lot of stories. I was in a position to interview the police. I met some of the gunmen and I interviewed them, although they didn't want to be photographed. I talked to them, tried to find out what motivated them. I did stories on people who, your father left home and he didn't come back. And you heard that he's dead and you go, you talk to them and you try to understand what is going through their mind. I mean, this is a man who just left home, this is my father. And you try to write, to capture that emotion, because you didn't want to put out a superficial story. I did all of those things.
We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue chatting with Mr. Adam Harris, AA. Mr. Harris, before the break, we were speaking of some of your most impacting or some of the impacting stories you can recall as a journalist. Do you believe, and I ask this question in the context of Guyana, do you believe that journalists are given the respect they need or they should have in this day and age in this country?
Respect isn't given. Respect is earned. I can't expect someone to come and say, Adam Harris, you're a reporter, you're a journalist, and so I will respect you. I must command the respect by my actions, by the way I carry myself, by the stories I write, how accurate I am. I must be able to develop the trust of the people out there so that whenever they hear, oh, I'm talking to Adam, he's going to report accurately, he's going to report fairly, I respect him. That is what journalists should do. We go to press conferences, and that's why I more or less I'm older than you, I just move away from the kind of thing. Why I would go to press conferences and I would see young reporters just go there, sitting down, waiting for a story from either from somebody on a question or from the speech given by the host of the press conference. You know, you go back and you report. So I say, and I built 4 miles of roads in 1 week. And then I opened 4 cokers, and I go back to the office and I write that without attempting to verify it. I write that without trying to understand why did he have to build 4 or 5 miles of road in a week and put the story in context. That won't happen. And that bothered me for quite a while. Called feeding the trough. Because if we're going to a press conference, we generally research the topic that's going to be coming up there. So you know when someone is either trying to sell you something, and you must be in a position to question untruths or irregularities that may appear. That ain't happening. And so if you can get those things right and people know, because there are no secrets about the place, then you get respect. You command it. Nobody can just give you respect. So if we want the reporters to give him the respect, I'm sorry, I didn't know respect for something that was being sold out there that you can buy and give it to somebody. You earn it.
And with respect to journalists following the tenets of journalism, how do you feel about that?
What are the tenets of journalism?
The basics.
All right. I'm going to tell you something too. You know, I notice we use reporters and journalists interchangeably. For me, a reporter is somebody who reports. Leroy Smith is talking to me. Leroy Smith is telling me this, and I report on that. A journalist is somebody who goes out there, who does reports. You know, and some of them did so well that they won a Nobel Prize, like Woodward, Bob Woodward, and Carl Bernstein. You know, they never heard of them. But there were 2 Washington Post reporters that helped bring down Richard Nixon. All the President's Men became famous movie, the work they did. The contacts they found and they wrote. They're still big. Woodward interviewed Donald Trump the other day in February. And Donald Trump tried to deny his own voice, his own utterances. Those are journalists. A reporter just reports. Now, do you ask if they get their due? Again, Jews not not something that's...
No, we were talking about the tenants of that.
Yeah, well, the tenants, as I said, you do your research. So when you go out there, you arm yourself with the tools to conduct an interview, or you arm yourself with the information to challenge what is presented to you, as the case may be. In addition to that, you learn to write properly, you know. We left school writing essays. Beautiful thing. The sun rose in the morning and set in the evening, and if you see color and all that kind of thing. When you're writing a news item, it's factual and simple. One of the tenets that I learned is a word saved is a kingdom gained. Rather than saying something like, we use too many words sometimes, and we split in adjectives. One word, if you can use one word to replace 5 words, use one word. And that is what the basic tenets of reporting. You practice to write. And when you write, you read it over. The other tenet is that I am not writing for me. I am writing for the reader, the person out there. When he reads that, he must empathize with it. He must know that, yes, I can understand that. I can, he must see it. You're writing for him to see what you saw through your eyes, and he must see it. And that's why there's some famous novelists. When you see some people pick up a novel and they can't put it down, it's because the writer has captured their imagination. That is what a reporter should be doing. Capture the imagination. Many people don't read newspapers today. You know why? It's not because they can't buy it. Because when they pick it up and they read it, it's boring and they put it aside. They rather sit down, shut down and listen to Big Smith Facebook story that is recorded, or they rather look at the television and let somebody tell them, and in addition to telling them, show them a video. So the car knocked down the old lady, and then they see a car and an old lady lie down on the road. They ain't able to read because that is not presented to them in a proper format in the newspaper. So, on
the issue of, but in relation to what you have just said, do you believe that newspaper is dying and it will ever die, given the advent of social media?
I've been hearing that for so long. 1988, I was in California. And I visited a paper named, what the hell was it? It was the first all-color newspaper that was designed to replicate television. I remember it in short way. And there I met a woman who had a relationship with the first U.S. congressman to be killed outside of the United States, a fellow named Joe Ryan. And he was killed in Guyana, Jonestown. And, you know, it was interesting that they were talking about making this paper all color because they thought newspapers would die. 88, that was what, 32 years ago? Newspapers are still here. Yes, circulation dwindled, some newspapers folded. We had a beautiful magazine named Reader's Digest, it's now online. And we were hearing about newspapers dying and dying and dying. And they haven't died. And they will not die if people read or if reporters write properly. They won't die. If reporters present the kind of stories that would grab attention, newspapers wouldn't die. If you think you're just writing to fill space, if you think you're writing a story because you like it, or if you're under pressure to do 3-4 stories a day, so you grab anything and you throw it in there, you're helping to kill your story.
As a journalist, have you ever felt so your life was threatened?
Your life threatened?
Yeah. And if yes, what are some of the instances?
I don't know about feeling. I know threats have been made to me. But I was never really placed in a position of fear, because I think Adam being who he is, being quite open, being quite ordinary, I don't think there was a lot of animosity or dislike for me out there. I never ever did a story designed to denigrate, that's a big word, designed to mess up somebody. Never did a story like that. Whatever story I did was based on being fair, so that even if it upsets you and you come to me to complain, I'll ask you, is it true? If you admit it's true, then I mean, it's true. You got a right to be there. Like, did you steal your neighbor's fowl? And I know you did. And you write about it, you will say, well, I'm Big Smith now, I'm this big reporter, my past is my past. I've never committed a crime, and then I say, I write a story that you steal, and you steal more than fall between me and you.
Mr. Harris.
So, and you might get angry and all of that, but in the end you accept it as a fact and life on. I don't think I was ever really threatened to the extent that I would have had to be afraid.
Our leaders today,
Leaders like, you mean church leaders and all that?
the political directorates, they can't seem to agree on a few things. They can't seem to have that common ground to meet and talk about certain things. Who is it important, or why is it important for them to come to a compromise at this time and engage each other?
This is my view. Politics is not a game about compromise. Politics is a game of ruling, of leading, of dragging the masses behind, of having them do what I think they should do. If you have two sets of leaders, all of them going after the one prize, the masses, they ain't going to compromise unless they decide to sit down and say, well, here, me and you will share this cake. The people, we will drag them along. All right? Yes. They told everything. But then somebody always believes that he is more equipped to lead, so you will get a conflict. That happens. In the U.S., there's the U.S. election. Now, the U.S. is supposed to be the party, it's supposed to epitomize the whole thing about democracy and look at what's happening. Two men trying to become president at loggerheads and quarreling, and the society is divided, and a lot of things are happening. The U.S. has been around since 1966. Guyana, we still can't have compromise. And in the U.S., they ain't got compromise. So I didn't know what leadership compromise you expect to see.
So on the issue of the US elections and compromise and years of existence and so on, what did, in your view, what did the period between March 2nd and July, August 2nd, did to Guyana?
If I do to Guyana?
What are your thoughts?
Let me tell you something. I have read and I have seen and I have heard all kind of thing about this.
And edited.
Yes, I've edited too, you know. Elections called on March the 2nd. Attempts were made around March 5th, March 6th, to present one set of results. And there was a lot of noise. A lot of noise. And all kinds of things. The diplomats got involved and all of that. That happened in 1992 without so much noise. In 1992, I remember people running in the streets. I remember elections day violence, burning. I remember diplomats walking in and out of the Elections Commission office. And I didn't hear all of the noise I hear about the Elections Commission, fraud and jail this law. I didn't hear it then. In 1997, 2001, I remember one chairman of the Elections Commission when asked, how is it that you could get the votes from, let's say, the interior area and you can't get the votes from Kitty? And this chairman, who's now dead, said, the runner's probably gone to the Olympics. That's the kind of answer you would give to a journalist or a reporter who's seeking information on the elections. And I didn't hear all of this noise. And I challenge anybody who's making all of this noise to come and tell me that what happened between March the 2nd and August the 2nd was different from what happened in some of the past elections, unless you want to bring in race and ethnicity. And you're telling me that one people can do one thing and get elected and another people shouldn't.
It happening in 1997 and repeating itself in 2020. Does it make it right?
It's not a question about what is making it right and what's making it wrong. It's an issue of us not learning from the past. And human nature isn't about forgiveness and correction. We still execute people in the prisons. The United States does it. I kill you, so the state will kill you. Does that make killing right? I don't know. We sit down and we look at what happened. There is a lot of history. We look at what division did. We can look at other countries and see what division did. But we're still divided. The result is that one community in September barricaded the street and attacked people who looked different. It's not a question about right or wrong. It's a question about understanding and making adjustments. And we're not prepared to make it. We don't make adjustments. We don't care. He does it, I do it. The whole question of arresting Lowenfield, Mengo, and all them people and dragging them up and down. And firing people from offices. That's a retaliation for something that happened before. But I want to go. You don't want me to talk about that.
No, we're just touching the subject.
Just touch it.
Mr. Harris, you would have had a good. I worked with you, so and from your from the way you spoke and so on, I gathered that you would have had a good relationship with almost all of the presidents, past presidents. Not sure about Trump, but tell us about the experiences working with those presidents, working during the tenures of those presidents. I know at one time, or maybe more than once, you were fired by Desmond Hart.
33 times.
We're going to get to the 33 times being fired, but tell us about working with these presidents.
I mean, covering them. There was Forbes Gordon. He had an aura about him. But, you know, and up to today, people still, you cover in the presence of leaders, yes sir, and you bow your head like the slave used to go ahead with the slave master. He went to a school that taught us to be very proud. So when you look at people in their eyes, you can talk to anybody.
The school is that Queen's College?
Yeah. So with Burnham, it wasn't difficult. And if you could speak the Queen's English with Burnham, you were up here. You started to respect you. You have a vocabulary and all of that. And you seem to understand things. That's 3/4 of your problem done. You know that you're a smart fellow, you know that you got understanding and you can think. Desmond Hart, I liked him because he was what he is. He wasn't a Burnham, but and he wasn't an extrovert, but he was someone you could talk to. And we had a lot of conversations. He would fire me now, and 10 minutes later he called me back and asked me, by the way, when are you going to finish this story? Fire by word of mouth. I really appreciated him, and I was one of the people who were close to him. Chetty Jagan, we went back when he was in the opposition.
Where did former President Hoyt fire you from? Where were you?
I was in the front row.
Chetty Jagan.
Chetty Jagan. I knew him from the days of the opposition when he was hustling, when Burnham did everything to keep him out of office and all of that. He was somebody I could talk to. Like me, he was a country boy. He was bright. And he understood things. Even on the campaign trail, when he said I get in power, the first said I'm going to roll on the Adam Harrison. I don't think he meant it. But his minions, there's them little people running behind him, took it seriously. So I resigned in 92. But he was somebody that I could talk to. I went to press conferences, and there wasn't no behavior that I could say about, yes sir, no sir, none of that. We could talk. After him, there was Barbara Jaggio.
There was Sam.
Well, Sam was very sharp. Sam went to school. He was ahead of me in school. And there was Janet, who was Janet. I remember one of my reporters asking her a question. And she said, which media house are you from? Elaine Ross, who's in California. Elaine said, Prime News. And Janet just told him, and he would walk away. There were those. I didn't have much dealing with them. But Barack was a friend. We used to sit down and talk and talk and talk. I haven't spoken with him since August the 2nd. But he was somebody I could talk with. He was somebody who understood what was happening. He was somebody who had his finger on the pulse of the head. And so he got ahead. David Granger, again, somebody I went to school with. My friend, we used to be exercising in the early mornings. And we had a very, very casual relationship. When you become president, me and you can't be friends because President puts you here and I'm going to stay here. So I'm not going to be chummy and walking and but we were all right. Now there's Irfan Ali. He was somebody when he was a minister. We got, Donald Ramatar, my friend. We're still friends. Irfan Ali, when he was a minister, we got on like wildfire. He was somebody I could call at any time, and he was somebody who would step up. I haven't spoken to him since he became president. But he was somebody that I could call and say, hey, Minister, this happened. Sorry. Minister, that happened. I was there when he was launching some housing expositions, and I'll get the first interviews. We walk around and all of that. So yeah, no problem with any of the presidents. The only president I might have a problem with is President Lewis.
I'm not really smart. Both Mr. Ramatar and Mr. Granger turned out to be one-term presidents. What is the difference between them? What do you believe caused them to end up being one term in office? What did they do similarly?
Jimmy Carter was a one-term president.
We're talking about
George Bush Sr. was a one-term president. You're going to ask what made them become one-term presidents? It had a lot to do with many things. Some people believe that foreign interference in the last elections caused Granger to be a one-term president. Donald Ramatar had the misfortune of presiding at a time when the public was led to believe that corruption was rampant and that his party members were the chief miscreants. And so you say a good time we get rid of them. Same thing happened in the holidays in 92 too. People say you've been too long, it's time they come out and people didn't vote. A lot of things can make you a one-term president. You don't have to necessarily do something. It has to do with the mood of the people.
As we begin to wind down this interview, Mr. Harris, I'm going to ask you, you've served for a number of years at Kaito News, a lot of years. A lot of people know you from Kaito News, as against Prime News and so on. Yes. What caused the separation?
I can give you three answers. One answer I can give you is likened to my marriage. I got married in 1971, got divorced in 2002. A lot of years, but we went our separate ways. Fact of the matter is, people change and situations change over the years. You mightn't realize it, but you yourself have changed. Delia Smith I knew in 2005, I think it was. It's not the same Leroy Smith now. And when you change, some of the things you accept, then you wouldn't accept them because life is different. And it's the same thing with me and Kachor. Yes, there were some things that I could write it when I was young and all of that. And as you get older, you ask yourself, should I continue? No need to. Time to move on. And I moved on. Some things happened after I left that made an impact on the kind of relationship I had with Mr. Campbell. And it's a question of two big men sitting down and saying, this didn't happen and that didn't happen. We haven't got around to doing that yet. Because they.
You've worked with Glenlal for 25 years thereabout. You're now doing stuff with Brian Tuwari, or something associated with Brian Tuwari. It is said that the two are related, cousin to be precise. Kaitro News, by virtue of its operation as a media house, would not have been very kind to situations that had to do directly with Brian Tiwari and his companies and that he's affiliated with and so on. How does it now feel working or being associated with Brian Tiwari, having come from the Glenlal camp?
I was never in a Glenlal camp. You mean working with Kaitro News and doing stories that would have painted Brian Tiwari in a negative light at times, and then being here with Brian Tiwari? It's a question of the work environment. I mean, I never had a problem with Brian Tiwari. The other thing about it is, I'm not sure that I was going to continue working. Every now and then, me and Brian talk. He said, "Well, you've been at Kaitro, you used to put some lash on me." Yes. You got to put some lash on Glenlal? I said, "I don't. No, Glenn hasn't done anything. So why we need to go after him?" And in any case, I don't go after media houses because I come from media houses. And Brian doesn't want to put lash on Glenlal or anything. In addition to that, this Brian Tiwari in BK International, there are many things. It's web, it's quarrying, it's gold mining, it's aviation, it's marine. And I am not involved in many of those things. Adam Harris is not BK International. Adam Harris is more linked to Brian Tiwari, the individual who happens to preside over all of these enterprises, than Adam Harris being linked to the quarry, being linked to the aviation sector, being linked to the marine, being linked to the gold, being linked to whatever it is. So it's like me and you. I am linked to Leroy Smith, but I am not linked to Dick Smith. That makes sense? There's one sign, me and you can go, you don't drink. So I mean, I'm sorry, I can't tell you, me and you can go and take a drink, unless we break him out of water. So whatever Big Smith is involved in is Big Smith business. And I got nothing to do with Adam Harris and Leroy Smith. It's the same here.
Okay, what are your, because obviously you're phasing out from, I would rather suspect that you're now at that crossroads where you are preparing to put your gloves, your journalism gloves aside and so on. What is next after journalism for Adam Harris?
Yeah.
Inevitable. But
it's funny. Once a priest, always a priest. Once a pastor, always a pastor. Once a cricketer, always a cricketer. Even if you stop playing, even if you stop preaching, Gary Silvers is in his 80s. But Gary still go out there, sit down, look at cricket match and try to talk to youngsters, telling them what they do wrong. I mean, from his vantage point, he can still see what's going on. Everton leaks with all them in the ratings. You got people who were priests and pastors who still would tell people at every drop of a hat about the goodness of the Lord and how you must walk the straight and narrow. They never stopped preaching. A journalist or a reporter said, the policemen left their work. And rather than go home, some of them go find a job that involves aspect of police work. So they go into security for them. Things like that. Now, a reporter is a reporter is a reporter. He would read a news item And he would call up and say, who wrote that nonsense? Call the editor. Come on, how you got your people writing like this? So what's there for Adam Harris? You can always be a journalist. I got an online publication right now. And it did. Will I ever stop being a journalist? No, because I live in a real world and there are things that are happening and there are things to which I can put a perspective. I would see a story, an incomplete story, and I think I'd be tempted to call a reporter to say, hey, how come you left this out? How come you do that? So Adam Harris will always be gloves and hand. You might not be actively thinking. You don't see me at press conferences. But I mean that I'm a reporter. That means that I'm paying attention to the press conferences. It doesn't mean that I ain't got an interest in what goes on in the press conference. You're always there. And when you get to my age, you will be the same way. I hope to God that you don't be one of them who are go from media house to media house to media house to see what's going on. You know, you can just sit back and deal with a long distance.
Thank you very much for joining us on Focus with Big Smith today, Mr. Harris. Thank you very much, viewers, for joining us. We'll see you here again next week. In case you're wondering what was happening, we were speaking with Mr. Adam Harris of Achievement, and Mr. Harris was speaking about his life in journalism and his experience and so on. Thank you very much. We'll join us here again next week.